Hello guys, welcome to the Trading Parrot. We continue to see the ETF inflows spike. Things are looking really bullish, but at the same time, I cannot stop looking at how many deposits from large holders, old wallets are coming into exchanges. We're going to look into the price action and try to identify those patterns of distribution that could be starting to spike a little bit too soon, too fast, too big. Guys, if you like this type of content, make sure that you are subscribed to the channel, hit the notification bell to get notified every time I put out one of these videos. And this morning I just released the weekly Elite TA video that we did live privately with my Elite Patreon members. Do not miss that video because we do a full analysis of all these coins in this list. This includes Chainlink, XRP, ADA, Solana, Bitensor, and a lot more. We even edit the live video from over 1 hour into just 42 minutes to make it easier for you to watch. Give it a like and comment if you appreciate the effort. And yes guys, in today's video there's gonna be a few mentions of Ethereum because Ethereum is starting to make history in here. I've got a chart incoming on Ethereum monthly that you don't wanna be missing out. That is something that Ethereum hasn't done ever in history. We will be covering also the progress on the altcoin season, the order book, and everything that's currently going on. Ethereum surge in buying from US whales. A premium on Ethereum unseen in recent times has emerged on Coinbase, a platform primarily used by US institutions and whales. And the Ethereum net unrealized profit versus loss NUPL is also starting to shift in terms of sentiments for Ethereum, which has flipped from capitulation to belief in Q2 2025 per the NUPL metric. This means that the NUPL reliably signaled the bottom ahead of Ethereum's price rebound and ETF inflows. And yeah, Ethereum still is the king of all coins, whether you like the coin or not. If it's too expensive, too slow, too old, still you can see how Ethereum dominance, which we're gonna look into that chart breaking out on the weekly as well, it's driving the total market cap for the first time into over 4 trillion. That's how big this beast that is just waking up from the tomb, from the very depths of the ocean, now starting to come back and wake up all the other beasts. It's more or less like watching an episode of The Walking Dead. All 3 crypto bills have passed the House according to Cointelegraph. Of course, I'm just reading the news. I don't know if this is fully confirmed. Let me know what you think in the comments. This involves the 3 acts apparently, and I suspect that is how we are managing to actually start doing damage to the last fair value gap on the top of the price, finally getting into 120, 121. Now, another story is that we are currently seeing a swing low. We'll look into that as well. Donald Trump sent to open US retirement market to crypto investments. He's preparing an executive order to allow 401k plans to tap broad pool of alternative assets. And yes guys, those 80,000 plus the 40,000 that started moving later this week are starting to make news all over the place. People are speculating by the moves that they are seeing in the wallets that they are starting to distribute. And many people say, well, if they already distribute and the price is still chilling at 120k, that means that they haven't sold. Well, I will say that moving from one wallet to another wallet doesn't necessarily mean distributing it in an exchange. So we'll look into what's currently out of all those 80,000 as of today landing in exchanges versus what's still in hardcore wallet. And another one on Ethereum, Blackrock files to add staking to its Ethereum ETF. So, okay, let's talk about Ethereum because it's making too many news and definitely has an impact on all the altcoins. If I didn't convince you, I will never do. This is the Ethereum chart starting from around 2017, okay? This is the part that I care of. We have the RSI on the bottom, and since it's a monthly, we can see that the peak of 2021, if we connect it with the 2 fail attempts that are actually 3, but since it's a monthly chart, we can only see 1 and 2 in here. So this will be the 3rd monthly attempt to break that global resistance in the history history of Ethereum. That is big. Second, we can see that this looks like a liquidity hunt. The trend line that has been holding Ethereum pretty much all the history got broken around April this year, and we reclaim it with this green candle. After that, we have indecision, but so far it seems like we're going to break, or at least do an attempt to break, that global resistance on the full history. Now let's look at the RSI monthly and let's see if it agrees with that. Well, good and bad news. The good news is that we have a local breakout, right? So this move that we have in here, these three candles, are supported as a local breakout of the momentum. But the price is already going too far too quick, because the price is saying, yeah, but I want to do a global breakout. I want to do the final nail in the coffin for the shorts and do a move that the RSI hasn't done yet, okay? The RSI has done just the local one, which confirms that this move is correct up until the resistance, okay? Hold on the horses. I'm not saying that we are gonna fail. I'm just gonna say that the momentum is not confirming the extension over the global price resistance, because the momentum is still trapped in here. How can we fix that? Well, we are at 18th of July, okay? So we have at least 12 plus days to break the global resistance with the momentum too. If by the end of the month the momentum is any higher than 61.88, or on the RSI any higher of 4K, let's call it, then the momentum will confirm the breakout beyond this green line. If the momentum stays below and just kisses the line, we have a mild bullish chance that that carries on. And if it sees a big rejection and the price remains like at 3.5, but the RSI remains very low, then we decrease the chance. We're gonna catch up with Ethereum in other videos. This one is specific for Bitcoin, but since you guys are requesting in the comments that I keep you up to date with what's going on with the altcoins, and I know it's the new toy this cycle, there hasn't been much going on with the altcoins, so you really want to know if this is going to be rug pull. And one of the data points that we need to keep an eye, of course, is on Ethereum. Well, XRP is also making some news. It's about to hit 200 billion market cap for the first time. Price nears the records. If I ask ChatGPT for what are the most meaningful Bitcoin news at the moment, we're getting, of course, the ETF inflows, the 500. Remember that Ethereum did 600 yesterday and is going parabolic like never before in terms of ETF spot accumulation day by day. We have 700 followed by 600, slightly outpacing actually Bitcoin. We got an article saying that Bitcoin rises to 120 and over that price thanks to the optimism over the US regulation. Of course, these three bills that got approved. Bitcoin standard to list Nasdaq via Cantor-backed SPAC, bringing 30,000 Bitcoin to Treasury Public. That's another buy that is absorbing whatever is going on with the Satoshi era well shifts of 40,000. And yes, on CryptoQuant alerts, I am getting huge amounts of Bitcoin hitting the exchanges. Yesterday, we saw 1.5 billion outflow from Bitfinex as well, but now is an inflow, so this is the bearish side on Coinbase. And you can see by the hour from midnight, we got 6,000 more, 6,000 more, 1,000 more, and they all seem to go to Coinbase Advanced. On the positive side, remember a few weeks ago, we were kind of freaking out because we were breaking down on the channel that belongs to the Federal Reserve balance sheet in here, and we moved the line in here, allowing it to turn into a pivot. And this Friday we have a new reading. On the opposite side, now we are breaking out beyond this red line, similarly to the breakdown that we had below the white line. So hopefully this one is gonna hold and carry on in the channel to the upside, because the Federal Reserve adding to their balance sheet is always something that the rest of the markets tend to mimic. Bitcoin rallies with the Federal Reserve balance sheet. That is just a fact. It even, in my opinion, works better than the M2. because as you can see in this area in here, this is the cycle of 2021, and you can see Bitcoin peaking at 69, and you can see below the M2 continues to rally. And if you follow the strategy of M2 is up, I buy Bitcoin, I don't care, that's all I need to know, which is what pretty much 1 out of 3 tweets are saying from influencers at the moment. Well, you get to buy Bitcoin at 69 and then go into 15K. And that happens pretty much in every cycle. When Bitcoin peaks, M2 carries on going higher. So whether there is causality or correlation, that's a long debate in my opinion. But in short, M2 helps, but not always. Let's go to CME because we have the 6 gaps below the price, starting with this one at 116, the 114, and then we go into the 90s with 97, 92. Of course, we have 54, and I think 21 is the last one. So 6 CME gaps. And my opinion on this, of course, today is Friday, so typically we are gonna get a new one, a 7th CME gap. The question is whether it's gonna be to the upside or to the downside relative to the price. If we start rallying and we leave a gap below the price, that's going to become the 7th CME gap below the price, which we can clear very quickly if it starts sitting very close to the other 2. Notice that number 2 is a 2K gap. So there is a huge amount of liquidity relative to other gaps that are just 100 gaps. To me, this structure in here looks bullish because you have higher highs and higher lows. But the moment you break this structure by taking one of the lows, producing an M below this high of 123, turning the 121 into a lower high with a break of structure to the downside, I think that is the moment that we can take 1 and possibly even 2. And given all these deposits that, in my opinion, they are in the best case scenario sitting in the exchange, possibly some of that has been already distributed, but I believe that there is no damn way that they have already distributed 80,000 or 120,000 Bitcoin and the price is just chilling with bullish absorption. There is usually a spike in volatility. It cannot go unnoticed, guys. You cannot sell 40,000 Bitcoin and the price doesn't even move 1K. Yes, there is the theory of the over-the-counter and all those tricks, but we are going to look in some charts of the past and see when there are spikes of over 100,000 deposits, what happens to the market usually. No changes on the Bitcoin status, everything remains the same. On the 4-hour, we had that breakout that is still healthy. There's been here and there a few hiccups, but overall the 4-hour and the daily is still healthy enough to keep it in the green. If we break structure, if we break down on the RSI on the daily, then we change things. Let's look at the 4-hour time frame. We can see that we pinched the green line last night. That looked pretty exciting for a potential breakout to the upside. The first one was a long wick to the upside that went straight into the fair value gap. Remember that we have a target in here for this breakout to the upside. We put a candle confirming the breakout, and now we are kind of faking out, right? So we reverse all of this back below the previous week high, and now we are testing the bullish order block located at 118 roughly. That is our line in the sand, because at that point, if we fail that order block and we fail the yellow line, which represents our global support on the RSI 4-hour, that is where we can start talking about this structure confirming as a topping structure and not as a continuation pattern or a bull flag. So 4-hour can give us very early feedback, but remember 4-hour is the noisiest of all the time frames that I cover in my videos. 4-hour many times fakes out much more than the daily, of course. On the daily, we're going to have to look into that support to get that confirmation. If we get confirmation on both time frames, well, we increase significantly the chances that there is a breakdown. So far, no breakdown, just preparation, just keeping an eye on what can happen. Everything looks healthy so far. We can just use this bullish structure with higher highs and higher lows to on the next wave up to hit even 122 or 123. That is how healthy still the structure is. At that point, we reach the bearish order block. At that point, we need to confirm that we are not there just to put a full double top like we did in this occasion around here. On CPR, we are still holding the second resistance as support that is located at 117.6 or 5. That is kind of in confluence with the support from the RSI 4-hour, and is also in confluence with the support on the daily, which is at the moment 65.90. You can see it in here in the price that is holding right there. So we are trapped on the daily 4-hour CPR support in a squeeze against the previous week high that for 3 days or more in a row is still holding the price. Now, look at those candles. The more candles you print that have a wick to the upside, that are not compensated with candles with wicks to the downside, or the length to the upside is larger than the ones to the downside, if you get what I mean, then you lean more towards distribution going on. So when we see this sort of candles, we say, smells like distribution. What's going on in the market? And we got those big whales that are depositing large amounts of Bitcoin, and we got on the other side spikes to all-time highs of SOPR in the oscillators. Does that fully confirm this is gonna be a distributive wave that we're gonna fully crash? No, but it calls our attention, and we look at that and we start being a little bit more cautious with the price action because we are not stupid. So the key takeaway is watch out with the current support and the squeeze that we are having with that weekly. There is a very good chance that, guys, that we break the past week high and we go for 2. After all, we are very close to that. But the question is if the whales are going to allow us to get there. Option 1 is they're waiting to get to that liquidity, this final spike in liquidity as we get into 130 to actually distribute those billions of dollars into the market in one hit. Option 2, they have already started distributing and they are going to continue to do so in such a way that it doesn't really affect that much the market. Call it, I distribute as long as I see the demand and bullish absorption, allowing the price to carry on higher and DCA my way out from those billions into the market without getting a notice. That allows the market to continue going higher and they can continue to distribute at higher prices. Therefore, the paycheck becomes way larger. If they just go and hit the market with 120K, you break all structures. You can go to 80K or 90 and start, shaking around the whole thing, shifting all the narrative. And that is not necessarily the best outcome for them. I'm just speculating here. So let's talk about distribution. SOPR is precisely that. When you see the SOPR very high, they are selling in profits. And we can see that in the previous cycle, around the topping area of the first leg up, early 2021, let's say, the SOPR oscillator was roughly hitting tops of 106 to 103. That range used to be the area of distribution. Then on this leg up, we kind of have similar readings around 104, a little bit less than the first leg. In this cycle, we get an increase in the spikes. So the first ones that we have in early bull cycle are very similar to the ones that we have in the previous cycle. But as we get into 73, we see all-time highs in distribution that gets into 113, 112. That has fully cooled down up until around end of June. We have this downwards resistance that has kept the SOPR declining, and declining. So the largest distribution was here. Then we have a second largest distribution in here. And then we get that all-time high at 119. That happened right at 109. Then we get now readings of 106. Don't underestimate it. 106 ended this, and 104 ended this one. 111 ended 73. 106 ended 106 around here. And we don't know what's going to end this one, right? We just know that suddenly we are spiking like crazy in here. We got a breakout, just like we did breaks out in here into these highs. This could do another leg up. But clearly, the takeaway from all of this waka waka is that honestly, I think there is decent amount of distribution going on. And it's impossible to tell if this can get to 130 or 140 or just here, but we are confronting a new challenge. You can even see on the daily, on this chart, those candles of distribution, long-term holders crossing the zero line of net position change, and the shorts are getting squashed big. almost the biggest squash of shorts that we are seeing in the oscillator in the whole cycle. The first one that happened that reached minus 24 in the oscillator, that was the first beginning, the kickoff of this bull cycle. In January in 2023, price went straight back into 25K pretty much. And thanks to that impulsive move from the lows of 15K, where everybody was wanting to short, thinking that we are going to 10K, and they got fully liquidated with a squeeze. That was the biggest move of liquidation in the oscillator. The second largest one is this one in here when we land into 73K. That reaches minus 20%. And after that, every time you get liquidation of shorts, you get a period of liquidation on longs. So after we reach 25, we liquidate longs, we put a new high, slightly higher, and then we go back to liquidating longs. That's how you get the oscillator to the other extreme of 20%. Same happens in here. You reach minus 20, liquidating shorts, you reach 73.5, and then you start a whole period that is dominated by longs being liquidated. So we are now witnessing the third largest liquidation of shorts of the whole cycle. We are with a reading of 19 negative, 19.1. So I find that interesting, right? So in the whole cycle, we're getting that. You could argue, well, this is the last leg, the fifth way, and this is just gonna go bananas into 300K and whatever. I find that getting into 19% is already a meaningful number, statistically speaking, and that we should potentially expect to get maximum into minus 24, but around that range that we are, there is just a 5% for the oscillator to move a little bit further into liquidating shorts, but then it's gonna get overextended and it's gonna be calling for liquidating longs. Yeah, but ETF absorption and all of that, sure, this market, this rally is dominated by futures, is heavy in futures. We can see that some periods like the one we are now is balanced between spot and futures, which is great, but we haven't had a good leg of spot to hold this move up. So it's pretty much with a pillar of futures. Those are people that take profits. So grab your popcorn and see what happens after. And today we got another spike, of course, of Big Well Explorer that is a result of getting another 40 plus hitting the exchanges. So they are not just moving coins from one wallet into another wallet just because the previous wallet was too old and they wanted to upgrade. No, they're going to exchanges. We started with Monday. You can read on the right hand side with 41,000. Then 2 days of roughly 11,000. And then Thursday with a reading of 43,000. So guys, that makes up over 100K hitting exchanges. There's been some outflows from Bitfinex. I think I saw yesterday. Those represent 20K. So roughly we are sitting at 80,000 that has hit already exchange. That's the delta. And when you get in those numbers, now we have a ratio of 186 on the Big Well Explorer. And you can see that we hit 182 and 192 on all this area of sideways. So distribution can cause that, right? We have a rally of 163%, and then suddenly you get those deposits and people start speculating, no, that's collateral to take along. Yeah, long my, bollocks. Did they long here with that Bitcoin? Do you think they long? No. Do you think they long here with that as a collateral? No. And in here? No. Did they long in here at 126? Possibly. They deposit this and the price went up. But maybe they deposit at 94 and they distribute at 108 because after that we went flat for around 50 days. I will say let's take serious this number, tight stop losses, and consider that this is just a deposit, not yet a distribution. But 80,000 in the exchange, guys. You're welcome. We're sitting at grid with 73 and we just went for this liquidity in here on the short term at 120. There's some leftover up until 124, I will say, enough to make an all-time high. But below, we are leaving behind a decent chunk here at 115 into 113.5. Of course, to get there, if we decide to do such a thing, we are kind of confirming that this is a dead cat bounce and ABC. We need to carry on higher and put a new all-time high in here to produce a V recovery with continuation, a breakout of the bull flag. But if not, this acts like a bear flag and you hit this area in here as a consequence. And that's why we are monitoring those very close levels of support that we have on the daily for hour and CPR. Because if you break those, yeah, voila, you come and hit this chunk in here very quickly. Now, another story is whether the market maker is going to allow that. We have 2K sitting at 114.7. They have flipped slightly higher. They have done that before. Initially it was at 114.3, then it was at 114.5, and now it's at 114.8. They placed the resistance right there at 121.5, and that caused this to start coming down for a swing low. Let's look at the liquidation map of the last 30 days. We have 107 being the largest, and then a collection here around 114, followed by 110. Right below the price, there is this small one at 119. Purple whales are now pointing down. It seems that only the brown ones are pushing the price higher. When it comes to the general markets, we can see that we have a decent close yesterday, and today in pre-market prices, we are seeing some positive moves as well. At least on the S&P, we have 1 point up, and on the Nasdaq, things are looking pretty good for the day open. And since we are now on altcoin season, index at 51, I think it's worth taking away the discussion around this and the Bitcoin dominance and all of that in a separate video. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.